This is something kind of key to stock making. If you can get vital points, specific points, like the width at the back of the plates, the narrowest place in your pistol grip, the width, the thickness right here at this behind the pistol grip, if you can get those dotted places correct in size, basically it's just connecting the dots. It's just that simple and just that hard. You get the dots right and you just connect the dots. It's like paint by number pictures after that. So I've got to get this dot right. So that's what I'm going to do now, and then I'll work on connecting this dot and this dot. That's pretty much all it is, and this is the dot connector. At this point, I should say this. Trying to do this with it in this position is comfortable for filing, but it's not good for symmetry because you need to see this side and this side. What I need to do is flip this thing vertically and look at both sides. See, I still have a center line right here across the bottom of this pistol grip. So I've got to get this symmetrical from here and the other side before I connect these dots. What that means is I've got to squeeze probably here. And I've already got this dimension and sanded down right around these cheeks. Where the lock plate goes is I call it a cheek right here on the sides. And so I've really got to be careful to not squish that beyond, to deform it. I've got to squeeze it, but I got to do it gently with some real slick, smooth blocks. This is wider here than here, I think. So I may have to use a tapered block to do that. See, I've got a 1/16 of an inch from the front of the lock plate to the back. I believe between these two blocks I've got a 1/16 of an inch. I'm pretty sure I do. I'm going to put most of my squeeze pressure back here, not up here on this front, this little tiny edge. I'm going to put most of it back here where it's going to be carved anyway, and there's a lot more meat right there. This is one of those places where it's very important to get your light directly down the middle of this thing. Shadows and light is like a visual feeler gauge. Every mechanic knows what a feeler gauge is. It's really hard to measure. I guess there's some sort of optical tool that could do it, but it's hard to measure from that center line to out here. It's just really tough to do that. You just have to use your eyes, and you can train your eyes. I've always had a good ability to look at something that's straight or see a crown in a board. I'm a 4th generation carpenter, so that kind of comes with the territory. The problem is I have terrible astigmatism and I'm very nearsighted. So being right eye dominant, I try to look at everything through my right eye naturally, but my right eye is the most astigmatism, so I have to consciously look through my left eye when I'm looking for something straight. I just have to close my right eye and deal with it. The human eye is very sensitive. All of them are very sensitive. Or like an old carpenter friend of mine used to say, they're very sensible. But the untrained eye can see a problem and say, ooh, that looks weird. The trained eye can see the same problem and say, that's off, and it's off this way or that way and this much. But both of them have a very sensitive eye. My grandfather could go down the street 30 miles an hour, look at a building and say, that thing's out of plumb a little bit. And if you check it, he was right. Because he could do the same thing with a house that we were building and working on, and if you did check it, and you will, he was right. That was my dad's dad. My mother's dad was a trim carpenter like very few other people. He was really, really a sharp trim carpenter, very meticulous. I didn't know that about him until he was already dead, because he died when I was a young guy. But I heard about it through relatives and friends. And then I realized where I got my desire to do that kind of work. My mother's father. Woohoo! I am there, ladies and gentlemen. This is the thinnest place, just right above the pistol grip. That's as thin as it gets right in there. And I am right there. Now that I'm the right size, remember what I said about sizing, shaping, and smoothing. Now that I'm the right size, and it is the right shape, I can start to smooth it. Now that I'm sure that this thickness is correct, I'm going to flip it back on this side where I can rough sand this side. This already been done down to 50 grit, which is rough sanding. Most people think of sanding as torture. That's a bad mindset. I'm actually not sanding with this block, I'm shaping with it. This is 50 grit. But what I'm doing the technique I use to be thorough and to get it right is I pick out my worst mark, my lowest place, the worst defect that's got to come out. And it's right here on the back, and there's some right there, and there's some right there. I keep my eyes on the worst one, and then I do thorough coverage all the way from here all the way around to here. And I go back and forth, keeping my eye on that one. I don't dwell on that one. I don't focus and just grind on it, because then you get a low spot here, and the rest of it's not smooth. So I'm going thoroughly from here to here, side to side, back and forth. Same pressure all the way around. But I keep my eye on my worst marks. And when they're gone, I'm done with that block. I'm finished. I go to the next block. And this is the one I dwell on the most, because this one is shaping. The rest of them are simply getting the sand marks out that this one left. And so it goes quickly after that. What you see as 3 or 4 seconds of me doing this per block, there can be 30-40 minutes reduced down to 3 or 4 seconds. I've spent about 2/3 of my life sanding something, whether it's a hardwood floor or cabinets or stops. It's probably some sort of counseling for people like me, I guess. First part of the Bible, the first book, the first few verses of the Bible, Moses wrote and said that God created man in his own image. I'm not getting theological, I'm not preaching to anybody, that's just the way I think. Well, we know that God is a spirit. He doesn't have hands and arms and legs and things like that. So how did he create us in his image? God is creative. Scientists have a pretty good clue that there's still stuff out there being created. They're discovering new things constantly. Little things and big things, micro and macro. There's only 7 notes. Think about how many people have created all the millions of songs with just 7 notes. There's only a few kinds of stone that they use for sculpture. But Michelangelo created this, and other sculptors created that. And each one's got their thumbprint. There's only about 8 or 10 kinds of wood in the world that they use to make things out of, houses or furniture or whatever else. And what I might do with this piece of wood has got my thumbprint on it. What you might do with this piece of wood's got your thumbprint on it. I think that we are created in God's image, partly in the fact that not only do we have a spirit, but we're creative. No charge for that. Kind of stuff I think about when I'm out here working by myself. And Petra, she helps me think about these things.